محمد وآل محمد صلوات. محمد وآل Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. We'll be starting tonight's program, the night of Arba'in, the night of Chehlum. We'll start the program with Marcia, followed by the lecture by Sayyid Asad Jafri, followed by an Urdu Masahib by Al-Hajj Hussain by Walji, followed by Nahwa, and then we will conclude the program with Zarath. Surah Fatiha is requested for Kul Mu'mineen al-Mu'minat al-Fatiha.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. چلوم ہے آج صرف تیری رسالت پناہ کا، چلوم ہے آسمان امامت کے ماہ کا، چلوم ہے دین دنیا کے وہ بادشاہ کا، چلوم ہے نور دیدہ شیر الہ کا، گورو کفن ہے ہوتا شاہ مسکین کا، کرتا ہے آج کا میلہ شاہ حسین کا، 40 دن کے بعد ہوا ہے یہ دن نصیب، وہ دکھ سروں کے درد کا اللہ ہے طبیب، یعنی فراح شام سے شبیر کا حبیب، رو رو کے کہتا بابا کے لاشے پہ وہ غریب، اے بابا اپنی بیٹی مجھے کچھ سنائیے، آیا ہے کہ جی بیٹا گلے سے لگائیے، ایک طرف جبرائیل ہے روتا غریب تن، ایک طرف روح فاطمہ کی ہے کنارہ رام، ایک سمت سر کو پیٹتے ہے حیدر و حسن، احمد کی روح لاش کا ہے کر رہی جتن، بن کر بلا کے چاروں طرف آوازاری ہے، ابن علی کے گور و کفن کی تیاری ہے، یہ گفتگو ہر ایک سر و تن میں تھی یہاں، جو عابدین آپ کا لاشا لہو لہا، یوں ہی اٹھایا غسل کی قطار ہے مومنہ، تب سر کو پیٹ پیٹ کے کرنے لگا بیان۔ یہ دین لکھا تھا دیکھتا مجھتا وانس کا، میت کا غسل دوں گا میں مجھ بابا جان کو، لینے جب لگا اسے وہ ثانی حسن، تب زینب آئی ہاتھ کے اوپر لیے کفن، بولی کہ با الہی ہے پوشاک یہ بہن، آگے بھی کرتی رہتی تھی خدمت سے کرتا تھا، تشریف لے کے آپ کہیں بائی جاتے تھے، پوشاک پہنے کی بہن سے منگاتے تھے، جنت کا پوچھے گا تمہارا اے مسکنا، سلائی ہوں میں آپ کو پہنانے یہ لباس، یہ کہ سر کے لاش کے ہو کے وہ نرا، پہنانے جب کفن لگی ان کو احالیہ، جب بولی دونوں آنسوؤں سے بھر کے نین کو، بنا کفن پہناتی ہے بھائی حسین کو، کفنا چکی جو زینب سے چشمے کے ساتھ، مستان بچھا رسول کی کلثوم دل کی کا، لے گئی اٹھا کے لاش کو میدان پہ ایک بار، وہاں جا کے خاک اڑانے لگی کہ احمد، دیدار واپسی ایسے کرنا کمال کا، دیکھو جمال فاطمہ کے نونہال کا، یہ سنتے روتی ہے وہاں پیاری بیبیاں، کر کے ادب و مجرا و چشمر میں کوسے کام، بولی کوئی کہ دیکھو مجھے صاحب قسم، بولی کوئی لگا لو گلے مجھ کے بابا جان، یہ حال دیکھ چھاتی جو بانوں کی پھٹ گئی، اے میرے والی کے کرم سے لپٹ گئی، وہ گورر الجنا جو تساحق کا وہاں، باندھا اس پہ زنا سے کی سواری کا کونچ کا، تے گوشی پر لگائی اسے پھر ایاموں میں، رومال ڈالا زیرہ کا اوپر لہو لہاں، ہرنی پہ کر آما مسائے مر سے کین کا، کوتر نکالا اس طرح دل حسین کا، لا کر اسے جنازے کے آگے کھڑا کیا اور سب جنازے کے لیے ایک بارگی اٹھا۔ جس دم وہ گھوڑا آگے جنازے کے ساتھ چلا، مڑ کے اپنے شیخ کا جنازہ کا تھا دیکھتا۔ کیسا سہایہ دیکھنا تھا یہ روا مجھے، ہوتا جنازے آگے سے چلنا لکھا مجھے۔ محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔
محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد۔ زندان سے چھٹے کر جو وطن جائیو زینب، زندان سے چھٹے کر جو وطن جائیو زینب، صغرا کو میرے سینے سے لپٹائیو زینب، معصوم جو بچے خون ہے دودھ کے کوزے، معصوم جو بچے خون ہے دودھ کے کوزے، اصغر کو میرے نام سے دلوائیو زینب، اصغر کو میرے نام سے دلوائیو زینب، ساقائے حرم تشنا دہن قتل ہوا ہے، ساقائے حرم تشنا دہن قتل ہوا ہے، یہ قبر پہ عباس کی لکھوائیو زینب، یہ قبر پہ عباس کی لکھوائیو زینب، چادر کے عوض بالوں سے منہ اپنا چھپا کر، چادر کے عوض بالوں سے منہ اپنا چھپا کر، دربار میں حاکم کے چلے جائیو زینب، دربار میں حاکم کے چلی جائیو زینب، مانگے جو سکینہ کو کنی زیم ستم گر مانگے جو سکینہ کو کنی زیم ستم گر تم منت کر کے اسے چھڑوائی او زینب تم منت کر کے اسے چھڑوائی او زینب ظالم جو سکینہ کو کفن دے تو نہ لینا ظالم جو سکینہ کو کفن دے تو نہ لینا معصومہ کو کرتے ہی میں دفنائی او زینب معصومہ کو کرتے ہی میں دفنائی او زینب زندان سے چھٹ کر جو وطن جائی او زینب صغرا کو میرے سینے سے لپٹائی او زینب رحم اللہ من قرأ الفاتحہ
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. The next we will have a lecture by Sayyid Asad Jafri, followed by an Urdu Masahib by Murabbi Hussain Bhai Walji. A Surah Fatiha is requested for Kul Mu'mineen and Mu'minat al-Fatiha.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Elements of a successful family has been our ongoing topic. Tonight is lecture number 4. First of all, we send our condolences to the Imam of our time and to all of you on tonight being the Shab of Arba'in, and tomorrow, of course, being the day of Arba'in. And while there are amal that are written in the books, as many of you know, one of, if not the most important act of worship that we can do tomorrow during the day is, of course, the recitation of Zarath al-Arba'in, as prescribed by our 11th Imam when he labels it as one of the 5 signs of a believer. May Allah give us that tawfiq to find some time tomorrow to read this ziyarat, inshallah. May Allah accept all of your worship and your gham and your grief towards Ali Muhammad. Our discussion has been revolving around elements of a successful family, trying to tackle and trying to give some advice to myself, first of all, and then to all of you, to ensure that our families are strong. A lot of us, we are a little bit disheartened when we look at the state of the ummah of the Muslim world right now, and then we are more disheartened when we look at the state of our communities across various countries across the world. And we often wonder, what can I do, what can I do, what can I do? And the very simple answer is that you strengthen your personal community. The 4 walls that right now all of you are living in, and you've been in lockdown since March or April, depending on where you're from, this is now your community. The 4 of you, the 5 of you, the 3 of you, the 2 of you maybe, you are your own Anjum al-Asghari right now. Okay? And you need to now look after yourselves. If every family can strengthen themselves, then that will relate in a strong community. Every community that will go into a strong ummah. We sometimes, we start off on a huge platform that's way beyond our scope. We become disheartened and we just pack up shop. No. Filter down all the way to, how can I now, and within the family now, how can I do my part? If everyone in the family does their part, the family khud by itself becomes a strong unit. Now, we've spoken about these 7 principles, right? According to Imam Sadiq in a book called Lantern of the Path. And so far we have discussed 3 of them. 2 more today, then 2 more inshallah tomorrow to close out my 5 lecture series. We've talked about the idea of forbearance, forgiveness, and humility. And last night was a very, very important discussion talking about the idea of being forgiving to each other in the family unit and also being humble. And we talked about the fact that the power of humility sometimes stems from the power of listening. That if we become better listeners and more accurate listeners, then what we've done is we've told ourselves that this person's words are of importance to me. It's no longer about me, myself, and I inside of me. In fact, I'm going to share my internal kingdom with the person in front of me, be it my children, my parents, or my spouse. Okay? In the process now, that removes a little bit of the arrogance inside of us. Right? Cultivates love, cultivates respect, and remember the hadith, right? The Ahl as-Sama and the Ahl al-Ard, the people of the heavens and the people of the earth. Right? The bride homes. May Allah brighten your homes, inshallah, with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, that leaves 2 more now, number 4 and 5, yes. And today's discussion revolves around 2 very important components to a very, very successful family, and that is generosity and compassion. Compassion. Let's start with generosity, sakhawat. Okay. Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wa salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. I talked about this in the first lecture on Sunday. I talked about this idea that in the khutbah that he delivered in the courtyard of Yazid, when he says that we, the Ahl Bayt, are known for 6 qualities, ilm and hilm, right? Shuja'at and balaghat, muhabbat fi qulub al-mu'min, and sakhawat. Generosity was one of them. It's an attribute that Imam Sajjad decided to include of all the various ones he could choose. Remember, Imam Sadiq now, okay? Imam Sadiq, the grandson of Imam Sajjad, he very famously says, Nahnu asma al-husna. We are the beautiful names of Allah, meaning we are the manifestations of the beautiful names of Allah. There's no shirk happening here. If you want to understand how, or a little bit of a glimpse of Allah's mercy, Allah's compassion, Allah's love, look to us. Meaning the point of me bringing that up is that Imam Sajjad could have used a number of qualities to introduce the Ahlul Bayt for the first time to the people in Sham who didn't know any better. He chose these 6 very carefully, and one of them was generosity. Okay? Now, when someone like me thinks of generosity, I think about giving to somebody who's asking me. Okay? I've spoken about generosity a lot. I really have. And and there is a trend happening right now that I am a little bit disturbed about. And that trend is that, we wait for someone to come and ask me what they want, and then I give it to them. Now, that's also very noble. Don't get me wrong. It's noble, it's generous, may Allah give you more. But a true sahi, a true generous one, inside the eyes of Islam, in the deen of Islam, is that individual that does not only give to the one who asks, but rather gives to the one before they ask. Before they ask. Okay? It's a beautiful point that I want you to ponder on. How do I do that, Malana? How do I give before they ask? You have to know that they are in need and not wait for them to swallow their pride and come to you begging. It's one thing where, let's say, for example, you're in downtown Minnesota, taking, let's say, the subway or the bus, and there's a guy downtown playing the guitar with his guitar case open. People are dropping coins and dollar bills in there. You come, and you like, I guess you like the way he plays the guitar, if that's weird, and you drop, let's say, a dollar bill, let's say, inside. That's generous, yeah. And you're like, you know what? I did my part. I'm generous. I helped this guy out. Feels great. That's good, but there's levels to everything. Everything has levels. The highest level of generosity is to give before they ask, which means there has to be such a culture inside of our homes and families where I understand the needs of the person and not wait for them to actually spell it out. Can you do this for me? Now, mind you, a lot of you might think, well, I'm not a mind reader, Malana. I have no idea what what he needs or what she's thinking. I have no idea. Sometimes you understand. Sometimes you know that if your child is having a rough day and you know it's this child, this specific child, what would really take away half the pain is a hug, is to share ice cream, sit there and play a board game, color a page with her, right? And make her forget about her bad day. Let her know you're home now. This is your haven now. You're with me now. You can do that. Don't wait to say, Baba, can you come? Let's go. You want to color? Her eyes will light up. If you approach your daughter, let's say, for example, and do what she loves the most, let's say, after having a bad day, her eyes will light up and instantly she'll forget about her day. Kids are amazing, man. They don't have any long-term memory. It's very short and they forget. It all goes back to what I talked about yesterday. If we are listening properly to our spouses and to our children, then we understand that each child, each person in my family needs something different. And I have to be in tune with what they need and give it to them if I feel like they need it. Okay? Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He would call the Holy Prophet a roaming physician in Nahj al-Balagha. What a beautiful title. A roaming physician. Today's doctors, you make an appointment, you go see them, they're in their office, or sometimes they rotate offices, let's say, for example, but they basically wait for you to come to them and say, look, doctor, these are my symptoms now, right? Can you, prescribe something for me? Okay, sure. That's today's doctors, but that's not what Imam Ali described the Prophet as. He said that the Prophet now was somebody who would roam around and would actually treat those who needed treatment before they knew they needed treatment. We have to have that culture. We have to have that open dialogue communication. Okay? One thing that I want to mention to my kids out there, my youth out there, if I have time today, I think I'll have time. I don't want to go past my 35 minutes. Is this idea that, a lot of my parents complain that, They're confused. They're at a roadblock saying, you know what, I'm trying to get into their headspace. I'm trying to find out what's wrong. I know that something's not right with my son, Malana. He's become quiet. He's become reserved, standoffish. He snaps. He was never like this, Malana. He was such a great child. I know that my husband, something is wrong with him. He's quiet now. He used to be the life of the party. And now he's not. Something is stressing, but every time I ask him, he just says nothing, and he brushes me off. And I don't know what to do about that. Now, to my kids out there, if your parents are sitting there and investing their time into you, be very grateful. I'll tell you my personal story very quickly, and I've told this story in multiple communities since the first of Muharram, because I think it's important. I don't mean to make this about myself. I'm just giving you what I know, what worked for me. My father, Marhum, left this world when I was in my late 20s, okay? We come from a typical Karachi background. Okay, I was born and raised in Toronto. My parents were born in Karachi, Pakistan. They migrated in the early 70s. Typical immigrant family, typical immigrant home environment. Okay, I believed growing up that my father was an immigrant. He didn't know the language. He knew the language. He had very good English, but you know, it wasn't my dialect, it wasn't my lahja, it wasn't the way I spoke. Right. On top of that, didn't understand me. I thought I was some enigma. You don't get me. You know, my issues are different. Your issues growing up in Karachi were different. And for a lot of my educational career, my high school, university, whatever the case may be, I never tapped into the resource of my father, asked him for advice, talked to him about my problems. I had rough days, rough moments. I was stuck at a fork road many, many times, what to do. Instead of me asking my father, I would ask someone else who may not have my best interests in mind. Until one day, someday, I remember that day very vividly, I actually asked my dad, I'm stuck here, what do I do? And he gave me mind-blowing advice. Mind-blowing advice. And then it dawned on me. I had this resource in my home under my nose the whole time. Who's traveled, he picked up his life from the comforts of his hometown to arrive in some new town, learn the culture, learn the language, worked odd jobs, right? 7 days a week doing this, doing whatever was needed to put food on my table, he was there. And he was obsessed with my success. He was. So his advice was wrapped with the heart and love and compassion and this desire now to see me succeed. And every time I took any of his advice, I succeeded. Whatever success was in my world, I felt it was the best advice possible. The problem was that a little bit late in my life, I tapped into my father as a wealth of wisdom and a wealth of resources. And as momentum was going and him and I were getting closer and closer, he became my best friend. He left this world. Devastated, heartbroken. It still rocks me. It rocked me for many, many years. And part of it was the guilt that I wished that all of those times I made so many mistakes in terms of foolish decisions that could have been avoided had I just understood that this father, this mother, this parent of mine, right, is emotionally invested inside of me, is sacrificing so much for me, would go to the moon and back for my success. We just need to understand that and stop getting past the fact that, oh, I'm some unsolved mystery and I'm a kid from the West and, you don't understand my generation and, and this is how they move now. Stop all that, man. You're not some enigma. You're not. You're one of 1,000 millions and millions of kids your age from all over the world. My point is that if you have a parent who's trying to get into your world and communicate with you and be generous in helping you out before you ask for it, let them in. Let them in. If you are a spouse who doesn't like to express their feelings and your wife or your husband is now, investing in all the right tools now, saying, look, what are you okay? I'm right here. Let's talk about this, right? And they want to know what's going on so they can help you, don't shut that door. At the same time, when they do open up to you as spouses and as parents, we have to listen to what they're saying, absorb what they're saying. Remember the 5 stages of knowledge from yesterday's hadith, right? Silence, listening, retention, acting on it, and then spreading. So all these things have to be there. We have to retain what we hear. If I hear, for example, that she's having a rough day and she needs this, for example, a day out, or let's say for example, young kids, right? One kid is 3, one kid is 1. She's been sleep deprived. She's had a rough go at. Let's say she's the one who's at home and the man is working. It could be the other way around. Okay, don't want to upset anybody. Could be the other way around. Let's say in this example, she's at home. She's drained. She is going through a lot. No self-care, no time for self-care. Barely enough time to worship Allah. You come home and she's a mess. she's breaking down, she can't handle it, this and that. At that moment, before she asks for it, give her a couple of days to herself. If that means that on the weekend you grab the kids and you take them out somewhere, or you say, look, go with your sisters, go with your mom, go have a self-care day, go do whatever you want, or just some alone time inside of your room. You can binge watch, whatever the case may be. Before she said, come on and say, look, I need your help. Please take the kids for 2 days. You do it. That's called generosity. Giving somebody what they need before they have to ask for it, which means you have to be in tune with what they need. A culture of what they need has to be inside of the household. Otherwise, giving them whatever I need. Oh, I want this. Okay, here you go. I want. Okay, no, that's not what it is. Because now, when you come to your spouse and you're able now to recognize with all the signs that this is what they need before they ask for it, it's such a beautiful, beautiful moment of love. It's such an announcement to her that, you know what you're going through, it affects me. I can't do what you do because I'm at work, right? But what I can do at least is tag in, right? Not babysit. You don't babysit your own kids, by the way. I love it when dads say, yeah, I got to babysit my kids. No, you don't babysit your kids, brother. You raise your kids. You babysit other kids. Your kids are your kids, Maisab, and you have to raise your kids. No one babysits their own kids. So please don't use that term. Anyways, okay? But now you give her a day off, for example. Okay? Those kind of things. That's called generosity. But that requires some cultural building. Okay? So we're going to work on that. We're going to try to pick up signs of our parents, of our kids. If we see that they're off and they need something, find out what is it that could really, really help their mood right now. It could be anything from a popsicle to a rose, to just being there, to just holding their hand, to just saying, if you need anything, I'm here. That's enough sometimes. Don't wait for them to ask you. Do your best to figure it out. That's number one. The other principle is that of compassion. Compassion. I'm going to use the Arabic term of mawadda for compassion. Okay? Again, in the very famous verse of Surah Rum, verse number 21, I believe, Allah says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Right? From His side that He created for you and from you, spouses, so that you may find serenity inside of them. And He placed between you mawadda and rahma. Forgiveness we talked about last night. Mawadda is not love, that's muhabbat. It's compassion, what mawadda is. What does compassion mean, and why is this a notch higher than muhabbat? Let me give you an example. There's a term nowadays that I often use when I speak to couples, and I'm not a counselor, but sometimes I speak to couples, and that is the idea of the language of love. Okay? Again, a topic I talk about everywhere I go. In Minnesota, you're going to hear it from me tonight as well. Language of love. Language of love means what? That you have to understand what the language of love of your spouse is. This is not just for newlywed couples. If you are somebody, mashallah, who's been married 40, 50 years, you also have to understand what is it that my spouse wants from me? How do they want to be loved? Just like Allah, right? How does He want to be worshipped? We can't sit there and say, God, I believe in you, but I'm going to worship you the way I want to worship you. No, it doesn't work like that, right? No. Allah says, if you have identified me to be a ma'bud, the source of your worship, right? Then you have to now be told from me how to worship me. If you love your spouse, it's the spouse that should tell you how to love them. And that's their language of love. Everyone has their own language of love. Okay? There are some spouses who require, a debrief, a summary, a conversation, a talk, a check-in every so often, right? If you ghost them the entire day, no messages, nothing, even a check-in, hey, how's it going? Good, how are you? Good. They need that constantly, then that's their language of love. Okay? If their language of love, for example, are small gifts every so often, then that's their language of love. If their language of love, for example, is that I want some self-care days, that's their language of love. You have to figure out, as the one who loves them, what their language of love is. But sometimes I find that, I love you, honey, I love you, honey, I love you, honey, 1,000 times, all the right words, man. Ooh, you got that down packed, homie. But when it comes time to act, it doesn't work. She's been asking you to clean the garage, clean the garage, clean the garage. It's a mess. It stinks in there. There's garbage in there, blah, blah, blah. Clean the garage for weeks and weeks and weeks. Cut the grass, cut the grass, cut the grass, cut the grass. But honey, I love you. But honey, I love you. And every time you say I love you, she checks the grass. Every time you say I love you, she opens the garage door. Until one day what ends up happening is that the grass is cut, the garage is clean, and then you say, honey, I love you. At that moment then, because there's action, amal plus love, that becomes compassion. It's not love, it's one notch higher than love. When you take the actions of the language of love and you apply it to a verbal expression, that becomes mawadda. Look, Raghib Isfahani. Raghib Isfahani is an individual who writes books of linguistics. Okay? He is in the ilm of ilm al-lughat. Okay? His book, Mufradat of the Quran, is that book where he picks up the verbs and the words in the Quran and he breaks down the meaning. He takes mawaddat, and while there are several meanings of mawaddat, one of them is the idea that he says that every building, every structure has these pillars. Okay? Pillars. Even right now inside of your home, there's support beams all over your house. Okay? That sometimes, of course, that always is covered in drywall. Okay, if you go to your unmade basement, if you have a basement in Minnesota, then you'll see these metal beams coming down that are holding up the house. Those are holding up the house. There are those things that are holding up the pillar. Please follow me. These pillars are holding up the house. There are these bolts that hold the pillar down. If you remove the pillars, if you remove the bolts, the pillar becomes shaky, the house becomes shaky. Raghib Isfahani says those bolts that hold down the pillars, that hold down the house, are known as mawaddats. These things, these principles and these tools of language of love, knowing the language of love of your spouse, right, are the bolts that hold the marriage down. Otherwise the marriage becomes free falling. Right? So it's okay to stop and say, look, you know what? This is what I think your language of love is. Have that talk tonight if you can after the majlis. What is my language? What is your language of love? And don't say, go ahead, tell me. What? No, don't quiz the guy. Don't quiz her either. It's not a verbal test. You fail. No, have a good conversation. How would you like to be loved? If you don't know by now, no, forget all that, please. He's coming to you. She's coming to you to help build the marriage. Right? Embrace that. Thank Allah for it and work on it. Find out what the language of love of each other is. Okay? And that's not just inside of our families. If we look at where else the word mawaddat comes in the Quran, it's a beautiful, beautiful, pairing. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. He's the only prophet of all the prophets that asked for a reward. Correct? All the other prophets said to their respective people, I don't want ajr, I don't want jaza, I don't want shukr. I don't want a reward, I don't want a thanks, I don't want anything. But the Prophet says that I do want ajr from you. I do want ajr for you. I do want a reward from you, but I don't want a reward from me. I want you what? Mawaddatum fil qurba. The only ajr I want from you is that you be compassionate towards my family. Have mawadda towards my family. What does that mean? Let's use the language of love example again. Okay? If our spouses have anyone that we claim to be our beloved, and ones that we love and that we adore, they have their own respective language of love. Our spouses, our parents, our children, right? The Imams are no different. The Imams absolutely hold a very special place inside of our hearts. The Ahlul Bayt do have a special place inside of our hearts. All those people right now who have flocked towards Iraq right now in Karbala for Arba'in, that's all love for Imam Hussein. Right? It's a caravan of ishq, as some of our ulama call it. It's a caravan of love. It's an organic walk. There is no tradition. There is no fatwa. It's not wajib. No, they're going, especially in this era now. They're putting themselves at risk, right? But it is definitely comes from a place of love. Now, if that love is for, let's say, Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and we claim, Labbaik Ya Hussein, we cry for Imam Hussein, we sometimes spend money on Imam Hussein, we host virtual majlises for Imam Hussein, right? There are people right now at Mashhur doing so much work for the program directing of Anjum Askari's Arba'in program. All this is for love of Imam Hussein. Not for fame, not for fortune, not for shohrat, at least I hope not. All of it is for the love of Imam Hussein, all of it. And I claim to love Imam Hussein. But the life that I live is completely opposite of what he gave his life for. There are people who love Imam Ali. And I remember seeing images a couple of years back. Around the middle portion of Rajab, the birthday of Imam Ali on the 13th of Rajab, mass celebrations inside this city, wherever it is in the country, it's not important. And they're out there in the streets and they're celebrating. Why? It's a beautiful night. It's the birth date of Imam Ali. Right? It's Mawlud al-Kaaba. Grand Jashan. We all come decked out. Right? Poetry, beautiful decorations, decor, mashallah. It's a beautiful, beautiful environment. These people also are celebrating for Imam Ali. In this video I saw, these are people who had music on, they had dancing, they had women dancing, they had men dancing, all in the streets. They're all dancing together, right? All for the love of Imam Ali. Balloons are being released in the air, for example. There's food being handed out, right? There's all sorts of decor outside, music blasting, even to the point where it seemed like they hired dancers to come in and they, from a distance, watch the dancers and they're clapping along and they're enjoying the festive celebration. And my question to that is that love for Imam Ali? Yes, it is. Absolutely, that's love. Of course it is. But if Imam Ali came into his own celebration at that moment, what would he think? What would he think? We claim to love Imam Hussein, yet we use that azadari to divide people, to judge people, to talk down to people, right? To break up communities. We claim to love Imam Zamana, we claim to wait for Imam Zamana, but we don't do anything for his mission. That's not what mawaddat is. Mawaddat is that Ali, I love you. Imam Hussein, I love you. Imam Zamana, I'm waiting for you. And my amal reflects the words and the feelings of love. Not that the way that what I say and what I do are completely opposites. I love you, Imam Ali, while I dance to music with women. There are some people who their love for Imam Ali went so extreme that they accepted him only to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ali Rabb, Ali Rabb, Ali Rabb. And those are people that Imam Ali would send la'anat on. You would sit there and say, Mullah, they love you, but that's not my language of love. They need to now pair that love with proper amal that makes me happy. Don't claim to love me and continue to disappoint me. Don't claim to love me and do things that upset me. Don't claim to love me and do all that. That's what compassion is. And that's what we need to do inside of a family, is have compassion. We all love each other. There is no doubt an aura of love, but sometimes what gets lost in the verbalization of love is the action of love. The action of love. So these two principles are very important. Right? The idea of being generous, being sakhi, and having mawaddat, having compassion. Okay? So of these five now, inshallah, we can begin right away to work on these things. Forbearance, forgiveness, humility, generosity, compassion. 5 so far. 2 inshallah tomorrow. But these are 5 that really now you'll begin to see a difference inside of your marriage immediately, inside of your family unit immediately, inshallah. Shabi Arba'in, like I said, a lot of us wish that we were there on the plains of Karbala. And we pray for those who have gone for the walk and for the ziyarat, inshallah, that Allah protects them from the virus and from each other and keeps them safe and brings them back healthy. But this was the night where Yazid now tells Imam Sajjad that you are free to go. I'm giving you your release from this prison. And he asks, because he says, do you wish to leave now? Do you wish to stay? If you want to leave, which way do you want to go? So when Imam Sajjad asked Bibi Zainab that this is what he is saying, the agreement was that we don't want to leave just yet. We want to cry for our shuhada. Allah. We want you to arrange a room. We can sit in that room. We can wear our black clothing. We can be there with the heads of our loved ones. And let us cry for our loved ones. That's all we want. We don't want anything else. We just want to cry. You know, I mention this every Shab Arba'in. The moment that the moon of Muharram is seen and announced every single year, I don't know about all of you, but my heart begins to now get heavy. And the heaviest it gets is on the morning of the day of Ashura. And the moment that maqtal of Imam Hussein is over, that heaviness is gone. 90% of it is gone. By Sham-e Ghariba, I feel light. I feel relieved almost. Because this heavy burden of grief is inside of me. I want to cry for Hussein. It's there. It's getting momentum. And then I have that release. I have that outlet. And I'm the one who's simply listening to the Masayib of Imam Hussein as the heart of Zainab 70 steps away from the Qatl Gha of Imam Hussein. Till Zainabia, Bibi Zainab is sitting there. Umar bin Saad, Hada Hussein, this is Hussein who is drenched in his own blood. You're watching as the son of Fatima now is being killed. She's seen with those eyes, but that heaviness inside of her heart has been there since that moment, Asri Ashur. Anytime Zainab wanted to cry, somebody would come and whip her. Somebody would come in and stop her. This was the first moment now where all of the family members could sit there in one room with the various heads of their family members and cry for their loved ones and cry for their loved ones. Give bursa to each other. Begin to heal the process. Begin to release that weight inside of them. And I don't know what was said, but my heart tells me that they were recalling stories of what happened on the day of Ashura. Possibly Imam Sajjad remembering that moment of Ali Akbar when he fell from the horse. Alayka minni salam, ya abata. Imam Hussein went roaring inside the Maidan of Karbala. This was Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar began to call him. Hussein gets off the horse. Some books say that he stood up and he fell. He stood up and he fell. He couldn't get there fast enough. The khak of Karbala in the air. Aina Ali. Aina Ali. Where are you, Ali? I don't see you, Ali. Or maybe that moment when Abu Fazl Abbas fell from the horse after having both his arms cut off. Alama Majlisi narrates that Sayyidah Fatima said, Majlisi, whenever you recite the musibat of Abu Fazl Abbas, make sure you tell the people that whenever somebody falls from the horse, they use their arms to break their fall. My Abbas didn't have arms to break his fall. He fell on the arrow that was shot by Hurmala. Or maybe that moment now of Ali Asghar. 7 times back and forth, my Mawla Hussein. How do I tell the mother of a 6-month-old that I took your son for water, but now I brought him back with one arrow that has pierced one side and came out the other? There's all these moments now. The Ahl Haram are sitting there in one room. The head of the Shahada, the head of Hussein is there. The head of Abbas is there. The head of Qasim is there. The heads of Ona Muhammad are there. And one by one they begin to cry for their Shaheed, only to be on the day of Arba'in reunited in Karbala, inshallah. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaliyul ibadat, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us that tawfiq, inshallah, to strengthen our families, to prepare that family for the arrival of the Imam. We ask you, Allah, to weaken the hands of the enemies of humanity and strengthen those oppressed all over the world, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين وقاسم بن الحسن ومسلم بن عقيل وهاني بن عروة وحبيب بن مظاهر والحر الشهيد الرياعي. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. رہا زندہ سے ہو کر کے نبی کی آل کو یارو، زمین کربلا پر آنے کی ایک رات ہے باقی، لپٹ کر بھائی کی تربت سے یہ زینب کا یوں رو رو کر نشان رسما دکھلانے کی ایک رات ہے باقی۔ عزیزان گرامی، آج کی شب اربعین ہے، 13 صفر کو جب یزید نے امام علی زین العابدین کو بلایا اور کہا کہ ہم نے تمہیں رہائی دے دی ہے، تو ایک مرتبہ امام علی زین العابدین جناب زینب کے پاس آتے ہیں اور کہتے ہیں کہ ہم کو رہائی مل گئی ہے۔ جناب زینب نے کہا کہ ان کو کہو کہ ایسی جگہ دے جہاں ہم ہمارے شہیدوں کے لیے غم منائیں۔ عزیزان گرامی، یہ پہلی دفعہ تھا کہ جب جناب زینب سب کے بیچ میں امام حسین اور شہدائے کربلا کا سوگ منانے کا موقع ملا۔ اس کے بعد جناب زینب نے فرمایا کہ ان کو کہو کہ جتنی چیزیں ہماری لوٹی تھی ہم کو واپس کر دے۔ پہلی چیز جو آئی وہ چادر جناب فاطمہ الزہرا تھی۔ ایک مرتبہ جب زینب نے دیکھا تو کھڑی ہو گئی اور کہا کہ یہ چادر مجھے دے دو، یہ میری ماں کی چادر ہے۔ اس کے بعد 2 بالیاں آئی۔ اس وقت جناب رباب نے کہا کہ ارے یہ بالیاں مجھے دے دو، اب تو میری بیٹی اس دنیا میں نہیں رہی۔ عزیزان گرامی، ایک مرتبہ ایک آدمی نے ایک انگوٹھی لائی اور انگوٹھی لا کر امام کو دی۔ امام نے وہ انگوٹھی دیکھی اور کربلا کا منظر یاد آ گیا۔ ارے امام نے فرمایا یہ انگوٹھی میرے بابا کی انگوٹھی تھی. ارے ان لوگوں نے انگلیاں کاٹ کر ان کی انگوٹھی بھی لے لی تھی. عزیزان گرامی 13ویں سفر تھی، 13 سفر تھی جب یہ قافلہ کربلا کی طرف روانہ ہونے کے لیے تیار ہو رہا تھا. صبح کا دن تھا. ایک مرتبہ امام زین العابدین آ کر جناب زینب کو کہتے ہیں کہ اب تو ہم چلے، سب کو اونٹوں پہ سوار کر دیا. تو جناب زینب نے کہا کہ میں ڈھونڈ رہی ہوں، رباب نظر نہیں آتی. اس وقت امام نے کہا اماں آپ آئیے، میرے ساتھ آئیے، میں آپ کو دکھاؤں رباب کہاں ہے. ارے اس وقت جب جناب زینب چلنے لگی تو امام کو کہتی ہے کہ یہ تو وہی جا رہے ہیں جہاں ہم کو قید کیا ہوا تھا. امام نے کہا ہاں چلیے میرے ساتھ. جب پہنچے تو دیکھا جناب رباب قبر کے ایک سکینہ کے نزدیک ہے. ارے اس طرح سے قبر پر منہ رکھ دیا تھا جیسا کہ سکینہ کو گلے لگائے ہوئے تھی. اس وقت جناب رباب کہتی ہے اے سکینہ تو مجھے ہمیشہ کہتی تھی کہ مجھے گھر جانا ہے، آج میں گھر جا رہی ہوں. ہم تو یہ خیال بھی نہیں کر سکتے کہ اس وقت اس ماں کے دل میں کیا ہوا ہوگا کہ اپنی بچی کو چھوڑ کر زندان میں جا رہی ہے گھر پہ. جب واپس آئی سب اونٹوں پر بیٹھ کر سب اونٹ چلنے لگے. ایک مرتبہ ایک مقام پر آتے ہیں جہاں 2 راستے تھے. تو امام زین العابدین وقت کے امام تھے، پھر بھی جناب زینب کو پوچھتے ہیں کہ ہم یہاں یہ کربلا کی طرف ہے راستہ اور یہ راستہ مدینے کی طرف ہے، آپ کو کہاں جانا ہے؟ تو جناب زینب نے کہا بیٹا ارے ہم لوگ جب کربلا سے نکلے تھے تو سب کو ریگستان پہ چھوڑ کر چلے تھے. ارے ہمیں بھی آخری زیارت کرنی ہے، چلو کربلا کی طرف. ایک مرتبہ جناب زینب اس سے پہلے کہ وہ کربلا کا راستہ اختیار کرے ایک مرتبہ سب کو کہتی ہے کہ آ کر سب دمشق کا رخ کرو. سب نے دمشق کا رخ کیا اور اس وقت شاید جناب زینب نے کہا ہوگا السلام علیک یا بنت سکینہ بنت الحسین. ارے سکینہ ہم لوگ جا رہے ہیں لیکن سکینہ ایک وقت آئے گا کہ میں یہیں پر آ کر رہوں گی. اور عزیزان گرامی، جب یہ قافلہ کربلا کے نزدیک پہنچا، اس وقت جابر ابن عبداللہ انصاری جو مدینے سے آئے تھے، ان کا ایک آدمی تھا عطیہ، ان کے ساتھ آئے ہوئے تھے۔ تو جابر کہتے ہیں عطیہ کو کہ میں تو اندھا ہوں، مجھے پتہ نہیں چلے گا کہ ابا عبداللہ الحسین کی قبر کہاں ہے، ذرا مجھے دکھانا کہ اس کی قبر کہاں ہے۔ عطیہ نے کہا کہ ارے یہاں پر اتنی قبریں ہیں، مجھے نہیں معلوم۔ اس وقت ان لوگ نے دیکھا کہ قافلہ آ رہا ہے۔ اس وقت عطیہ نے دیکھا کہ امام علی زین العابدین ایک مرتبہ امام کی نظر جابر ابن عبداللہ انصاری پہ پڑی تو دوڑتے ہوئے گئے، جابر کو گلے لگایا، کہا جابر میں علی زین العابدین ہوں، آج پہلی مرتبہ کسی نے مجھے گلے لگایا ہے، ارے مجھے دلاسا دو، ابا عبداللہ الحسین کا دلاسا دو۔ الا لعنت اللہ علی القوم الظالمین وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون۔ ماتم حسین۔
الوداع 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 خواهر خدا حافظ الوداع 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 خواهر خدا حافظ الوداع 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 بہن زینب الوداع بہن زینب الوداع بہن زینب الوداع بہن زینب زینب حسین من زینب حسین من خواہر خدا حافظ زینب حسین من زینب حسین من خواہر خدا حافظ الوداع دوریدوتن الوداع دوریدوتن خواہر خدا حافظ من کبھی علم دورم بموین و بیورم من کبھی علم دورم بموین و بیورم از حیات پیزورم از حیات پیزورم خواهر خدا حافظ زینب حسین من زینب حسین من خواهر خدا حافظ اے میری بہن زینب گھر تیرے حوالے ہے، جو لائے کا سجدہ ہے سر اس کے حوالے ہے، جو لائے کا سجدہ ہے سر اس کے حوالے ہے، بس چل کوئے خنجر بس چل کوئے خنجر خواہر خدا حافظ من کبھی علم دورم بے معین و بے اورم من کبھی علم دورم بے معین و بے اورم از حیات پیزورم از حیات پیزورم خواہر خدا حافظ زینب پہ حسینے من زینب پہ حسینے من خارا خدا حافظ یہ نام میرے نانا سے گھر بار اتارا ہے اس طرح نواسے نے وعدے کو نبھایا ہے اس طرح نواسے نے وعدے کو نبھایا ہے سر ہے میرا زیر پر سر ہے میرا زیر پر خارا خدا حافظ من نے کبھی علم دورا بے معین و بے اورا من نے کبھی علم دورا بے معین و بے اورا از آیات پہ زورا از آیات پہ زورا خارا خدا حافظ زینب پہ حسینے من زینب پہ حسینے من خارا خدا حافظ تم بات میری زینب مشکل سے نہ گھبرانا عباس سے جری بن کر ہر ظلم سے ٹکرانا عباس سے جری بن کر ہر ظلم سے ٹکرانا اے جان و دل حیدر اے جان و دل حیدر خارا خدا حافظ من کبھی علم دورا بے معین و بے اورا من کبھی علم دورا بے معین و بے اورا از آیات پہ زورا از آیات پہ زورا خارا خدا حافظ زینب حسینے من زینب حسینے من خارا خدا حافظ زینب میری بیٹی کو ہر غم سے بچا لینا جب روئے سکینہ تو گودی میں سلا لینا جب روئے سکینہ تو گودی میں سلا لینا کم سن ہے میری دختر کم سن ہے میری دختر خارا خدا حافظ من کبھی علم دورا بے معین و بے اورا من کبھی علم دورا بے معین و بے اورا از حیات پہ زورا از حیات پہ زورا خارا خدا حافظ زینب حسینے من زینب حسینے من خارا خدا حافظ الوداع دوری دوتے الوداع دوری دوتے خارا خدا حافظ زینب حسینے من زینب حسینے من خارا خدا حافظ الوداع 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 خارا خدا حافظ الوداع الوداع خارا خدا حافظ الوداع الوداع خارا خدا حافظ یا حسین
بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دین بچا کے جاؤں گی اب مدینہ جاؤں گی اب مدینہ چہلم تیرا منا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دین بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دین بچا کے معلوم ہے یہ تم کو زینب اجر گئی ہے لیکن تیری شہادت گھر گھر پہنچ گئی ہے شاباش دو بہن کو شاباش دو بہن کو بھیا گلے لگا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دین بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دین بچا کے بھیا تمہاری زینب اب وہ نہیں رہی ہے، پہچان لوگے مجھ کو حالت بدل گئی ہے، چلتی ہے یہ ضعیفہ، چلتی ہے یہ ضعیفہ، بھائی کمر جھکا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے۔ کیسے بتاؤں بھیا بازار میں جو گزری، کہتے تھے سب کے مارو یہ ہے علی کی بیٹی، بابا کے بھی میں بدلے، بابا کے بھی میں بدلے، سب آئی ہوں چکا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے۔ امت نے تجھ پہ بھائی رونے کہاں دیا ہے، جی بر کے میں نے تیرا ماتم کہاں کیا ہے، روئے گی آج زینب، روئے گی آج زینب، فرش عزا بچھا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے۔ یہ کہہ کے تکلم اٹھی علی کی بیٹی، عباس کی لحد پر پہنچا دے مجھ کو کوئی، دکھلا دوں با وفا کو، دکھلاؤں با وفا کو، رسی کے نیل جا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے۔ جاؤں گی اب مدینہ، جاؤں گی اب مدینہ، چہلم تیرا منا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں، نانا قدیم بچا کے۔
My brothers and sisters, we are coming to the end of the program. I would like to invite our Vice President of the Jamaat, Sister Batulbai Mehdi, to say some few words. After that, I will have few announcements and we will conclude the program with Ziyarat. Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad Salawat.
Assalamu alaikum. Wanted to take this opportunity to let everybody know, and you may have read about it in Samachar, but this Saturday on the 10th of October, between 2 and 5, we have something special happening here. It's going to be happening in our field area, and it's called a drive to Karbala. So we're requesting everybody to come out, families, everyone of all ages. It will be an interactive tour that we want everybody to participate in. Children ages 12 and under, we will give them a passport, and they will be collecting stamps of the different cities in Iraq and Syria. And they will be going on, and we're trying to do something to promote this time. As it is the time for Arba'in and people are on the walk, we wanted to do something here locally. So please come out, please support us, again, between 2 and 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Batul Bhai. A Surah Fatiha is requested for the following marhumeens and all other marhumeens. Marhuma Abida Begum, Ishrat Jahan Begum, Sajida Begum, Sakina Begum, Mir Sadiq Ali, Mir Bakir Ali, Munir Ali Khan, and Kul Mu'minin and Mu'minat Al-Fatiha. Before we recite Ziyarat, just a few announcements. If you have brought food items for the shelter tonight, Interfaith team will be ready to get it from the cars. Please turn your hazard lights. Program for tomorrow is as under. The program will be on Zoom at 6 p.m. Masaib by Al-Haj Hussain Bhai Walji. At 6:10 p.m. Ziyarat Arba'in. We will then meet here at 8 o'clock for the Thursday night program, which will start with Surah Yasin. For the information of the members, there are nuts in the tabarruk today, so please be cautious about it. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله أحسن الله لك العطا في ولدك الحسين السلام عليك يا فاطمة أحسن الله لك العطاء في ولدك الحسين السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين أحسن الله لك العطاء في ولدك الحسين السلام عليك يا أبا محمد الحسن أحسن الله لك العطاء في أخيك الحسين السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته اللهم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كريك وجتر من حسين صلاتك عليه وآبه يا عزيز كافيا وناصرا علينا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوى وتمتعه فيها ذوي رحمتك أرحم الراحمين صلوات.
Ahsant, ahsant. Please turn on your lights. As usual, follow the instructions of the volunteers. And when you are stopping by for the tabarruk, please have your face mask on, up. Also, those people who have brought any food items for the shelter home, please put on your hazard lights. The volunteers will come to you and take that away from you. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.